Today let's explore the concept of discontentment, and I must thank a recent young acquaintance of mine who used it so beautifully, placed it so well in that particular sentence. It inspired me to try and make this audio cast. So thanks very much, and we'll do it in three parts. In the first part, let's try to describe, if not define, what discontentment is, so we understand it better. And then we'll also look in the first part as to how it comes about. How do we build a tendency to first feel discontented? And then we'll move on to the second part, where we briefly look at the consequences of discontentment in our day-to-day lives, in terms of how it affects the way we feel, how it affects the way we think, how we approach our life, so on and so forth. And finally, it wouldn't make for a good conclusion if we don't explore how we can overcome discontentment, and that will be the third part. So let's get started, and here we are with part 1. What is discontentment? And I'm just going to do this loosely so we can relate better with the term. Let's say we put ourselves in a particular life situation. Let's say I'm hungry and I go to a restaurant. So I'm placing myself in a situation called eating at a restaurant. And I go there with the hope that they are going to serve me some food which will help take care of my hunger, or it will satiate my hunger, and I'll feel happy, or I'll feel contented. So if we are to break this down, I go there hoping that there is some content called food, and the content is going to help satisfy my need. And if it does satisfy my need, I feel contented, or the content has met my expectations, right? Or it has delivered what is required in that situation. If it doesn't happen, let's say the food is bad, or there is no food. Let's say the restaurant says, "Oh, sorry, we are closing right now," and I'm still hungry, and I've put myself in a situation where my expectations have not been met. Then I am discontented, because the level of content, or even the very presence of the content, is not good enough to satisfy my needs. So that is what discontentment is all about. And when we get to the state of discontentment, we feel unhappy, right? Obviously, because our happiness is associated with our meeting something that we wanted, or something meeting our expectations, but it didn't happen. So we are unhappy, and there is no satisfaction, so we are dissatisfied. Okay, so I think this is briefly a safe description of discontentment, and we understand that in simple terms, we go somewhere with an expectation, and when that expectation is not met, we are discontented. All right. So how does it come about? And for this, let's look at a simple scenario. Let's assume you are a young child and you love chocolate. I mean, which child doesn't? Right? And your mother is a very protective, loving, caring mother who understands that as a child you need to have the occasional bite of chocolate to enjoy your life, right? You're entitled to it, but at the same time you must not have so much that it affects your dental hygiene or your overall health. So what she has done is she has devised a system where the way she gives you chocolates, you always get only one small square piece of chocolate. Let's say a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square, the smallest thing that you can break off from a bar of chocolate. And as far as you're concerned, that is the definition of chocolate, because she has also made sure that no one else gives you chocolate. Again, it's a hypothetical situation, right? So according to you, if somebody says chocolate and you visually picture it in your head, you're talking about a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter slice of chocolate. Now, let's say your uncle, whom you have never met in your life, or meeting after your infancy when you never had chocolates, has come home, and you run to your uncle, you hug your uncle and all of that, and your uncle says, "Hey, I've got some chocolates for you." And your mother says, yeah, okay, let's give it to him later, or give it to her later, and says, "You go play in your room, we are going to have some adult conversations." Your uncle hands you some toys and you're playing with that in your room, right? And your mother walks in and she gives you a small piece of chocolate, your regular sized 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square, and says, "This is the chocolate your uncle has bought for you." You're elated, you're happy, because the moment you heard the word chocolate, you pictured that you will get this 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter slice. You put yourself in that context, and what you hoped for happened. You got your 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square, and you are satisfied. The content of your expectation met the actual content, so you are contented. Again, I'm using the term content very loosely. I'm not claiming to be etymologically accurate, so please don't blame me for that. No, you're happy, you're contented, and you're nibbling away slowly, blissfully, happily, enjoying the chocolate melting in your mouth, savoring the taste of it, right? Feeling it go down your throat, whatever, right? And then suddenly your uncle calls you by name, and because you're so happy, you rush out in your enthusiasm, and you find your mother staring at your uncle and trying to hide something, and then you notice, but she can't help it, she can't do it fast enough, you're too fast. You notice that she has something that looks similar but twice the size, and suddenly your entire world has fallen apart. You discover that your mother has a slice of the same brown piece of chocolate that has 2 such squares, and then before you know, you're turning around and you suddenly what you have is not good enough, right? You know, chocolate is not just this one slice, and the best is that 2 slices. And then you turn around, you look at your father. If he is anything like me, he has a bar or a piece that has 4 such squares, and all of them are frantically trying to hide it from you because they have created this illusion that chocolate means 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square, right? And then you find your uncle holding the rest of the bar, and in a very short span of time, your entire notion of what chocolate is has changed. And you know, according to you at this point in time, for a moment you felt 2 pieces was the best. So, and then in a split second you saw your father, you know 4 pieces is the best. So 2 pieces become better. And then you look at your uncle, and then you start throwing a tantrum. I want this, I want this, I want this, because you're all excited, you're angry, you're disappointed, whatever it is, right? And they pacify you saying, okay, you know what, no, this is for us, but I'll take you to the store tomorrow morning and get you more. And let's say the next morning you go to a store, and you see, according to your right now, the best is 1 bar of chocolate, right? You have managed to put the pieces together in every sense of it. Now, suddenly a child walks out with his or her mother with 2 bars of chocolate. Suddenly 1 bar of chocolate is not the best, 2 bars is. Then you walk into the store and you find small boxes of chocolate. Not only do you discover that suddenly you have more bars, but you also have more flavors, right? And you now don't know what is the best. And just as you're trying to avoid the gaze, and then you look up, you find cartons of chocolate stacked up on the topmost rack, so that they can take, as the shelves are emptied, they can refill it from there. And you are even more confused. Now that 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter means nothing, and what brought you joy until yesterday suddenly brings you a lot of pain and sorrow. You are discontented. And then just as you say, you know what, your mother gets you 2 bars and says, hey, you still need to eat only 1 slice a day to be healthy, etc. You're not listening at all, because you're dealing with your own new learning and you're overwhelmed by it. And suddenly you find a truck backing in. I'm making this up, so never happens that much fast in real life. So you see a truck backing in with a big brand name of a chocolate company, right? And you realize that truck has hundreds of such cartons of chocolates. And suddenly what you had yesterday seems so infinitesimally small that it means nothing, right? So this is how we build discontentment. And suddenly, unless I have that whole box of chocolates or whole truck of chocolates, depending on what is the highest you have seen, I'm not going to be satisfied. I need it, I want it, I have to achieve it, otherwise it's not good enough, right? So that is what happens, and anything lesser doesn't give you the satisfaction, doesn't give you the contentment that you need from that particular situation. Now we can generalize it to other areas. Let's say you join a company, a very prestigious organization has recruited you from college, and you are given the post of a junior assistant. You feel your life is made, you have achieved what you could, and just when you are sitting there in the cafeteria after, let's say, your induction, some senior person tells you, hey, look at that guy, right? He joined a year ago, and within a year he has performed so well, he is now an associate. So you ask, what is an associate? And then suddenly you discover that there is a hierarchy, and you are at the lowest rung, you are a junior associate, you can become an associate, then a senior associate, then a team leader, then an assistant manager, so on all the way 20 layers up, you can become a CEO. all of a sudden you find yourself saying, how do I, instead of savoring the fact that you have just become a junior associate, you suddenly start seeing how you are now chasing the target of becoming an associate. And let's say you become that associate in 1 year. Are you going to be contented with that and say, you know what, I'll just remain an associate till I retire? No, you're obviously going to ask, how do I become a senior associate as quickly as I can? And this never ends. So this is what it looks like. And to kind of discuss this a bit structurally, right, because we want to place all of this on a scale. In English, we learn about adjectives, and when we talk about it, we always talk about the positives, the comparative, and the superlative. So the good, the better, and the best, if we can put it in simpler terms, right? So that 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter was good, it was the better, it was the best, it was all you had, and you were the happiest person on earth. Suddenly, through the process, you discovered that best could take so many different definitions within 1 day, right from 2 slices or 2 squares all the way to a chocolate factory. And as and when you discover more superlatives existed, or more bests existed, if I can put it that way, you also discovered that the number of better options in between what you have and the best keeps increasing. So if we keep pursuing the best, it becomes clear from all of this that the number of better options keeps increasing as we make progress. Let's say I go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to a whole bar, 1 bar to 2 bars, so many flavors, different assortments. The list is endless, right? And then suddenly we find ourselves caught in a melee of what can be possible, and instead of feeling happy that there is so much possible, we are actually disappointed, right? So what we can say is we get caught in an illusion of superlatives. Now suddenly we don't want to enjoy what we have, right? We jump and we want to get to the next better, so as to get to the best at some point. Now here is where we stop with part 1, where we try to describe what discontentment is and to understand how it comes about, and then we can go to the consequences. All right, fine, I'm discontented, so what? First of all, suddenly we are very, very unhappy and stressed that we don't have what we want. Now, if it is something like a chocolate, or if it is something that we possess and we enjoy, it's just going to be about what we have or what we do not. But what if it is a job promotion? What if it is a grade? Or what if it is some kind of academic achievement or something of that sort, right? Or life achievement. Not only do we feel stressed about not having something, but also start questioning, why do I not have it? Then we ask, am I not good enough? And then sometimes, let's say we go work hard and then we go from one good to the next better, and maybe to the next better, but there are still so many betters till we get to the best, and the best also keeps changing, right? It's like a path to infinity, if I can put it that way. So you're always stressed because you're never looking at what you have, and you're always looking to the future, and you're always asking, what are the things that could stop me from getting to the next better or to the best? So you're anxious now, and typically when that happens, what follows often is a negative self-evaluation. You ask whether you are good enough to have it. Then even if you get to some of the betters, you don't enjoy it, but you say, I am not getting 3 levels better, only 2 levels, because I am not worthy of even these 2 levels. So what we term as sense of self-worth, or sense of our own evaluation of ourselves, our self-esteem goes down, and we become self-critical. And then we try to overcome that by creating elaborate plans about how we want to go about with our life and what we want to do. We burn out, we suffer, we struggle, all the time focusing on what is better. So there is a lot of anxiety and stress. Another important thing, let's assume we'll go back to the house where the child or you first saw that there was a second slice of chocolate. Forget the bar. You're holding that bar, like I said, you're chewing blissfully, you're gnawing away slowly, nibbling away at it. You're enjoying the molten chocolate going into your mouth and filling you with that taste. And suddenly you see that your mother and father have larger pieces. You're probably shocked, your eyes are open wide, your mouth is open wide. Perhaps You have even released the finger holding the chocolate, and that piece of chocolate has fallen down. But you're so shocked and so disappointed, you don't even know that you're no longer touching the chocolate or holding the piece of chocolate. It's now fallen to the ground. If you had a dog, probably the dog has eaten it. Suddenly, this is what happens. You lose touch with what you have. We lose the ability to enjoy what we have. We lose the ability to appreciate what we have. Instead, we are chasing after something else constantly. And okay, I get better. Do I do it? Like I said, you get to you get to associate. You are next chasing senior associate. You are not even sitting and enjoying it there, right? So there is no recognition of what you have. Instead, you are always looking for how can I get better? What's better? What's better? What's better? What's the best? What's better? You are trapped in the illusion of the comparative and superlative, if I can put it that way, right? Because like I said, there is an infinite number of betters and the best keeps moving away. It's like trying to say, I'll set sail on a ship to the end of the world and then I'll be able to touch the pole star because that guides me. Only when we realize that the earth is spherical and if I do that, I'll probably keep going round and round, but the pole star is somewhere up in the heavens, we end up being disappointed, right? It's the same thing. So these are the consequences of discontentment, or building this tendency to be discontented with life, right? The nature of discontentment is such that it will cause you a lot of anxiety and stress. We will not talk about those in detail because that's a separate topic. It will make us lose touch with what we have, and it will constantly keep us on this elusive pursuit, or this false elusive pursuit, even better, of the comparative and superlative, because we are always going to be held back. We are always going to trail behind because there are more betters. Okay, good. So now we move on to part 3, because we also want to understand how do we overcome this discontentment, right? If we didn't understand it, at least we could have taken some other strategy, but now that we understand it so well, right, and we have spent so much time, almost 17 minutes on this, it wouldn't be fair to end it without sharing some ideas on how we can overcome discontentment, right, or tame it to a large extent. Here we can draw upon the ancient wisdom that has been bestowed upon us by a lot of ancient cultures. I wouldn't say this is a very Indian thing, or I'm not one of those people who believes or who has these illusions that we are the only wise civilization, right? So we've had enough people across the globe who have taught us a lot of these practices, and we'll draw upon 2 ancient practices and 1 modern practice that psychology or different schools of psychology teaches. The first of the ancient practices is practicing gratitude. Now, if you're wondering, come on, what do you mean by practicing gratitude? Do I not know that I'm thankful? It is important to understand what is important to practice gratitude. What are the prerequisites? First of all, what is gratitude? Let's say I get something, or somebody gives me something, or somebody enables me to do something, and I recognize that they have enabled me to do something. I recognize I have something worth having, right? And I'm thankful to whoever gave it to me. It could be my parents, it could be my teachers, it could be my friends, it could be somebody at work, my boss, it could be a well-wisher, it could be anybody or anything for that matter. Let's say I'm very, very thirsty, I'm hiking, and I suddenly find that a little stream. I cup my hands and I take a drink of water. I'm grateful to the river for providing me with water to quench my thirst, right? So one of the prerequisites for expressing gratitude is a conscious acknowledgement of what I have right now, and a conscious acceptance of the fact, or acknowledgement of the fact, that I have been given this because I need it, and then an acceptance that it is valuable to me, and then recognizing that there is something else or someone else apart from me who has made it possible, and so I need to thank them. If we have to break gratitude down, this is how we'll do it, right? So practicing gratitude forces me to think. So every day morning, let's say I wake up and I say, every hour I will take a pause in my routine to be grateful. I obviously have to reflect on what I have done in the 1 hour, even though I would have done it mechanically or subconsciously, and then ask myself, what should I be thankful for, right? And then I say, oh, I had a good breakfast, so thanks to whoever cooked it, my wife or my mother or the office canteen staff, whoever, right? And then things like that, right? So I learned something really, really good today. I thank my teacher. So we are able to practice gratitude. Then slowly, when we keep doing this, over time we learn to be more present and appreciate what we have on our hand right now, instead of always chasing after some comparative or superlative. Now, there is one pitfall, potential pitfall here, where often we are made to do this, right? When let's say we are complaining about something, quite often people say, look at people who are suffering, right? Oh, you are complaining that you do not have air conditioning. Think of a person who doesn't even have a house. Oh, you are complaining that you don't have those fancy shoes. Look at a person who doesn't even have a foot. Right? Granted, such reflections will help us to be grateful for what we have. I don't deny that. But is it the best way? Not really, because all we are doing is, let's say, when we said the good, the positive, the comparative, superlative, right? So the positive, we said if we are to visualize this as a graph or a continuum, we are saying this is the point 0 if we are charting it. Somebody who's worse off is probably -1, -2, -3, right? So what we are essentially doing is we are only changing our view and looking at the other side of the story, right? Oh, I at least got a job as a junior associate. I know even seniors of mine who still haven't gotten placement, who are struggling, who are walking with their resumes. Fine, but that is just -1 or -2 from where I am. At some point, I'm going to still have the habit of comparing myself and always looking at superlatives, etc. So it's not really a sustainable practice, right? So yes, it's a good starting point, but we should, and then if we start appreciating what we have on an absolute basis for what we have, just focus on that. We have to train ourselves to do this. Then we learn to slowly distance ourselves from the illusion of the comparative and the superlative. So that gives us some peace of mind. And because I'm so grateful, I'm thankful, I have what I have, I'm able to enjoy it better, just like how we were able to nibble on the chocolate and feel blissful. I am grateful for it. I am enjoying it. I have no illusions of anything else, right? And I'm living in the moment. I'm able to enjoy it to the fullest extent, and I'm contented, right? So suddenly there is no anxiety, no stress, no pressure. And let's say if I'm a junior associate, I'm contented with it, then I'm able to do my job properly, and that forms a basis on top of which I can then build and become a associate or a senior associate when I do my job as an associate. So it allows us to focus and give our very best without being dragged in all different directions, without being distracted by possibilities and ingratitude. Okay, so that is that. But does that also mean that I should not take effort? So this is one of the other misconceptions. Obviously, we have to take efforts. Does that mean I should not be goal oriented? No, it does not. We have to be goal oriented. It's a good idea to have goals, right? Let's say I'm a student who's in, let's say, the 70th percentile of my class or my grade. If I say I'm grateful that I'm able to do so much, I'm happy that I've learned this, doesn't mean I don't want to improve. Doesn't mean at some point I want to get to the 90th percentile. But here I am asking, yes, I have done this. I know this. I am aware of this. I am grateful for this. If I have to improve from where I am, how do I build on top of it? So this also helps us to look at how we take one step at a time, small incremental steps where we build brick by brick, just like how we construct a house, instead of taking giant leaps from one better to another better, which is not a very sustainable thing, which is very, very unhelpful, like we saw. Okay, so yes, we could be goal directed, but this allows us to be realistically goal directed, and it allows us to enjoy the journey. We appreciate and enjoy every single step. We are grateful for every single step. It keeps us in the present, and so we are not dragged by anxiety or stress or anything, and we are able to accomplish what we want. Because if we have an improvement mindset, this is what we call the growth mindset or the improvement mindset, right? Instead of saying, fixing our notions and saying, this is what I have to absolutely do, I have to do this is non-negotiable, are all recipes for stress and definitely failure, because you know only one way. If there is even the slightest stumbling block and we go off course, we don't know how to get back. So we go back all the way and then we restart. We are never able to adapt to the situation. But when we take this improvement mindset or the growth mindset, we say, yeah, we've gotten this far. Suddenly there is a stumbling block, but I'm grateful for that stumbling block too, because it is teaching me a lesson. Right? Gratitude also helps us to look at negative experiences in a positive light. It allows us to appreciate it see what we can learn and then adapt our course or to take a different road. Just like how we take inner roads when we are in a traffic jam, it allows us to adapt and then we become flexible, we eventually reach our target. So the more we have an improvement mindset, the greater the assurance that we will meet our targets and achieve our goals in a more flexible, adaptive way where we are not so stressed and anxious all the time. Okay, so that is one big advantage of gratitude. The second ancient wisdom practice that we can draw upon is called putting distance between ourselves. So we call it detachment, right? But for the context of this discussion, we'll see how we can put distance between us and our accomplishments. Now, why should we do that? We have accomplished it. Why should I not hold it close to my heart? There's nothing wrong. But the point is, it is a bit tricky because if we hold our accomplishment close, knowing very well that I am separate from my accomplishment, I am not my achievement, then it is fine. But quite often when we do this, what happens is we become entangled with our accomplishment, and then what happens is I identify as myself only when I succeed. Right? We identify ourselves with our achievements. So when we don't achieve the next time or we don't get something the next time, like I said earlier, it paves the way for negative self-evaluation. We start feeling we are unworthy or we start feeling we are not good enough, and our sense of self-worth and our self-esteem goes down. Right? So if we observe people performing these different oblations, right? So they light a fire and sacrificial fire and then they offer ghee and other oblations to it. We'll often find that they'll chant some mantra, they'll invoke some deity, they'll offer some ghee or something else, rice or whatever, and they'll say Na Maha after stating the deity's name. Na Mama, Na Maha, oh, this is not mine, this is not me. So what they are fundamentally doing is, they recognize that they are the ones doing it, obviously, right? They're not delusional, they know they are doing this. They say, okay, I offer this ghee to you, but it's not me. So they separate themselves from the act they perform and they say, this is yours, oh Agni, this is yours, or oh Vayu, this is yours, or whatever, right? So then they are able to distance themselves from the achievement or the accomplishments or the actions they have made. But do they stop with it simply because they say this is not mine? No, they continue. What that does rather is, it allows us to separate ourselves from our achievement. So one fine day, if I do something wrong, it doesn't happen, I don't see it as I am a failure. Quite often we hear people saying this, right? I am useless. No, you're not useless. Why do you say you're useless? I failed an exam. Yeah, you failed an exam, but you have passed 40 exams before this. How is that you are useless? So when I say I am Ramanujam, and in the same stead I say I am useless, then Ramanujam is useless. You see the absurdity of this, right? So that should not happen. So putting distance between us and the actions and all of that allows us to separate ourselves from achievements and focus on what our strengths are, what our values are. We are more self-aware. Right? The more we separate ourselves from our achievements, we are more aware of who we are. And this, coupled with gratitude, allows us to progress without any stress or anxiety. Okay, so we have seen this, right? And we also saw some time back that there is this continuum, right, or this chart that we plotted saying what is worse off all the way to what is the best, and we are somewhere. Okay, so another trap that we can fall into is every time when I accomplish something or when we get there, even with all of this, if I ask what is better, we are still pretty much there. So we can reframe. This is the modern teachings of the recent psychologists and all of that, right? So when they talk about reframing, they encourage us to think differently about something as compared to how we think now, right? So instead of saying what is better or how better, we can ask, I've come here, so what is next? So when we say what is next, instead of what better, we leave aside the evaluative mindset. So we have already seen so far that we have left behind the perfection mindset or the accomplishment mindset. Instead, we are only looking at progress and improvement and growth, right? So we have prioritized progress over perfection or accomplishment. Now we are saying, and we have also, because of the distancing, we are also prioritizing awareness over identification or external identification, right, with our goals. So now we are saying, if I don't call something better and I simply call it as next, I am not judging it, I am not judging myself, but I am asking what is possible next. So I become curious. So I am substituting judgment with curiosity. Right? So when all these are possible, right? Replace judgment with curiosity, or evaluation with curiosity, right? Replace identification with awareness, and replace a fixed mindset, a goal, what do you call, the illusion of superlatives with gratitude, right? Or more importantly, replace perfection or accomplishment with progress or improvement. Then what happens is all of this sets us free. And does that make us slow? No, it doesn't, because we are not burdened by all those negative evaluations, negative emotions, negative experiences, the bitter feelings that churn inside. All of that goes away. Our brain is not filled with anxious thoughts of what all could go wrong, what are the possibilities. Instead, we are entirely focusing our entire capacity on what to do right now, right? And we are very mindful of what we do. So the farther we go away from being too clingy with our goals and all of that, I think I'm not going to repeat myself again, right? Because honestly, it's a very long audio, it's about 30 minutes, slightly more. So the moment we start focusing on awareness, the moment we start focusing on improvement and progress, the moment we start focusing on curiosity, what it does is it sets us free. It unburdens us. And then we see that we actually do more, we accomplish more. And none of the negative experience, including negative experiences, we enjoy them. We are grateful for them and we learn from them. And I think that is really what matters in life. And at the end of the day, if we are able to do this, we also see, in line with today's topics, that we are in a constant state of contentment, and discontentment becomes a far distant memory that we no longer have to worry about at all. So thank you. If you have stayed on with me for this long, thank you very much. And I hope this content was useful, and wish you all the very best in your life.